welcome back to Cop to Corporate. I'm Sammy T, your podcast host, and today I am joined by Ryan Schonfeld, a former police officer, security professional, and now the CEO of HiveWatch, which I'm super excited for all of you to hear about. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Sammy, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's just dive right in and talk about your career as a police officer. Can you tell us your story there?
Being a police officer was one of those childhood dreams of mine. I decided in first grade that I was going to go into law enforcement and never really wavered from there. At the time, it was, okay, am I going to be a Fed and go to the FBI or focus on local law enforcement? But it really drove a lot of my education and what I did in school and college. I went to the police academy straight out of college and pretty quickly found an interest in computer crimes. One of the things that really frustrated me was how far behind we were in chasing criminals and how much better at using technology they were to get away with crimes versus how we were at using technology to solve them. And ultimately went back and got my master's in IT and system design, which led me into computer crimes. And I guess the rest is history.
And we're going to see as we talk more about what your career path has been, how that has kind of helped you turn it into what you're doing now. What was the catalyst there for you saying, I'm going to leave law enforcement or at least cut it down to not being full-time cop anymore?
Once I started getting into computer crimes and I finished my degree, I found a program through the State Department where I could do consulting work and they would send me overseas to help train law enforcement agencies with allied countries. And aside from it being great money and a lot of fun, I realized that there was a lot out there in the private sector that still was law enforcement adjacent, still super interesting, still helping solve big problems and help people and move the needle in the community. But I also didn't have to fight people and risk my life. And I was at the point in my life where we were starting to think about kids and having a family. And it just all sort of lined up for me that that made sense as the next move. And of course, you start having the conversation about, I have X number of years in, and does it make sense to leave now? Or what about the pension and the benefits? And so definitely a conversation worth having. For me, the math worked out very easily that I didn't have enough years on that it made sense to not leave, but certainly something we can talk about.
Yeah, because I know that a lot of the people that watch this podcast are in the middle of their career and have, say, 5 to 10 years on, and they're like, well, do I stay for 20? Is it worth it for me to keep going? Or what advice do you have for the people that are thinking that through?
I have this conversation a lot with people that are either contemplating a transition, that are mid-transition. There's some agencies that still have amazing benefits and retirement packages. But the reality is it's not really that hard to make up what you're losing in the private sector. The money's a lot better. The opportunity for growth is there. The compensation packages are much higher. And so I think that's one of the things that's often not well factored into the decision about, do we do it now? Do we wait? Because the thing is, if you're at 10 years in and you're an agency that's 20-year retirement, 10 years is a lot of your life to give to try to earn a pension that's going to be some percentage of what you're making now versus what you could go out and earn today. And frankly, that incremental increase today over that same 10-year period and investing some of that money is likely to be a lot more than you would ever get from that pension anyways. I think there's lots of logic that can be had in that conversation. And sometimes a simple spreadsheet might help figure out the answer to that as well.
I love a good spreadsheet, good checklist too.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm sure a lot of people are having those thoughts in their head. And so you decided for your family, for probably your love of technology, for a lot of different reasons that you wanted to move on. So what was your path from leaving law enforcement to becoming a CEO of a huge company?
Well, I don't know how huge we are, but it was an interesting path. And I've learned so much stuff along the way. I mean, between grad school and now, I feel like the last few years I've gotten a street PhD versus all the time that I spent in school and college. But I left, and my first job was working for one of the biggest security guard companies in the world. And it was early days of the Affordable Care Act. And so we were looking at ways to tech enable the security guard business. and use tech to basically make the business more efficient. I didn't love the organization, but I did love the problem that we were trying to solve. But I had also relocated from the East Coast to LA and thought that now that I'm new in LA, working in Hollywood would be really fun. And found a job at Fox Entertainment that seemed like it was written for me, and managing global investigations. And they were looking for somebody with law enforcement and investigative background, ideally with a master's in IT. I mean, it was such a weird job description for the type of person they were looking for. And I couldn't help but read that and be like, I'm the only person on the planet that meets this description. And counter to every piece of advice that you probably hear today, I didn't have any connections to that job. I actually just applied online and then never heard anything for a few months. And finally, they pinged me, and I was in the process, but did that. And then I transitioned into the corporate security department there and ran global security technology. Found a problem that I was really passionate about there, which was unifying technology across an organization's global footprint and tying it back into a cohesive command center. And so we did that for Fox. And then ultimately I left and started a security consulting company that helped other organizations do that, and realized along the way that every company that we were working with had exactly that same problem. And basically said, this is a software problem, and started a software company to help solve that.
So where'd you get the name HiveWatch from?
So the original company name was RAS Watch, which RAS, there's lots of different jokes from my friends on what it stands for. It's my initials, and it's a pretty boring answer. But early days, one of our advisors said, you're going to change the name, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, it's a really stupid name. You sound like a law firm. And I was like, well, what do you think it should be? And it's funny because I showed this text exchange at an all hands recently, and like you can see where we're going back and forth on company names, but we got to Hive Mind and really a couple of things. And we have like a ridiculous bee theme with everything that we do here around the Hive, but both the idea of Hive Mind and also the idea of like how a Hive actually operates is really the thinking behind the name.
That's really great.
And also
So
because somebody told me it was stupid.
can't let them say that. What advice do you have for cops that want to become a CEO? 'Cause a lot of people are entrepreneurs and have a lot of ideas for creating a business. So, having done that, what can you tell them?
Go do it, go try, find an idea, go learn, go fail, make mistakes. That's all good. It's all an amazing part of the journey and the process. Almost nobody gets it right the first time. But the reality is when, I was doing the spreadsheet on figuring out, can I leave my corporate job to start a consulting company? You look at the hourly rate that you're going to try to bill customers for whatever value it is that you're going to bring them, whether it's private investigations or security consulting and site assessments or something completely unrelated to security. And what I realized very quickly was I didn't actually have to bill that many hours to make up what my corporate salary was. I think the formula we did was like 4 to 6 hours a week was all I had to bill to make what I was making in my corporate job.
Wow.
Now, you've got to go out and find customers and sell 4 to 6 hours a week, but there's a hell of a lot more than 4 to 6 hours in a work week. And so when I started the company, it was 10 hours, and then we got to 20 hours and 40 hours and 80 hours, and then you needed more people. And it just grew from there. But I think when you sit down and do the math, you'll realize pretty quickly that you can have a pretty successful company with no employees and not a lot of overhead and have a really nice lifestyle without having to actually do that much work.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, I mean, I like to work, and maybe I'm addicted to work. But the point being is that like you work really hard today for your cop salary, even your corporate salary if you're contemplating leaving a corporate job and going out and starting your own thing. And when you work for somebody else, which there's nothing wrong with, but there's always a limit to what you can achieve. And that limit is predefined by somebody else. And when you go work for yourself, that limit's removed. The earning potential that you have is really defined by you and what people are willing to pay for you and how hard you're willing to work. And I really love that. I mean, that motivated me more than anything else, because really it puts me in control of my destiny. And because I love to work hard, that means like I can go out and earn a lot more money. I will say, don't rush to hire employees. It is a big change to how you operate, the cost to operate, the overhead, everything. Employees are wonderful, but it really materially changes the business. So make sure you're really ready for that when you decide to do that.
Absolutely. We're gonna need to get a copy of that spreadsheet from you to share with everybody. What other advice do you have for people that just are considering leaving law enforcement in general?
It's a really tough time to be a cop. I don't envy people who are still doing it. I respect the hell out of them, but it is not a good time to be in law enforcement. It's an important time for people to be in it, but I also understand why people are leaving, why people are not getting to retirement age before they go. And you know that there is life after law enforcement. There's very good life after law enforcement. There's fun, there's excitement, there's everything that you think you can't get out of the job. I promise you it exists in the private sector, whether it's executive protection or you want to chase people, or like there is some equivalent to whatever you think you need in the private sector. Dip your toe in. There's lots of things that you can do before you actually make the decision to pull the trigger and leave. And I think one of the biggest things folks need to think about and start actioning on, if they're not already, is building their network. LinkedIn is one of the most powerful tools that I think people thinking about their transition should be starting to leverage, and not just sending blind connection requests, but actually having conversations with folks, getting to know people. I can't tell you the number of connections and introductions I make on a weekly basis for people that I don't always have a deep personal relationship, but like we've gotten to know each other, or we met on LinkedIn and then I see them at a conference. But that stuff matters. And I stopped tracking. I don't count, but like the number of people that I've helped get jobs or get into a process, or, you know, bypass the applicant tracking systems just because we started a virtual relationship on LinkedIn. It's who you know. And that's really going to move the needle, whether it's job seeking or even building your own business. It's all about getting in front of the right people and finding customers. And that network is everything from that standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely important to be very intentional about that, and figuring out who the right person is that you need to speak with, and hoping that they are willing to help you out with that. So that's great that you've been able to help so many people.
And don't follow your connection request with an ask for something. Get to know somebody.
It's a pain in the butt to get a sales pitch just for random stuff.
Yeah, sales pitch or pitch for I need help with X. Like people are willing to help each other. Like I think by and large, the vast majority of people want to be helped, but the relationship and connection part is really important. And for me, you know, not only did I start a company, but we've raised a lot of capital for our company. And that's something for people to think about as they're starting their businesses. You know, are they going to fund companies organically? Are they going to find investors? Are they going to what's the exit plan? Are they building a lifestyle business? Are they looking to sell their company? Is it a big enough idea that it can be a public company? You don't have to have all of those answers up front, but thinking about it will really help define the trajectory, the path, and where you focus on building your network, because you need to build your network in the right places to support whatever that plan is.
Absolutely. That is great advice. Ryan, I'm so grateful I had the chance to speak with you. Thank you so much for being on this podcast, and we really appreciate your insight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.